And action. Freddy had a question about how to get big, how to develop muscle mass. And if you search on the internet, you'll see weird things, you'll see varied things. There's not one formula. I think it takes hard work. It also takes dedication because it takes a long time. Now, some people have the gift of genetics where you put them into a pretty decent routine of resistance training and they sprout up quickly. No question, the older you get, the longer it takes for muscle to respond. The poorer you eat, if you have bad nutrition, standard American diet, the longer it takes for muscle to respond. The worse your sleep habit, the longer it takes. The worse your disease process, the longer it takes. So you have to obviously be fine-tuned before you get into an exercise routine. What I did when I was in my 20s, at the age of 18 I took a title Mr. Natural New Jersey, teenage division, when I was 18, 1982. And then I took Mr. East Coast, teenage division, I think, I forget what it was. But I had the most muscle mass at that point in time. I also had youth on my side. At 55, I don't have youth anymore. I don't have time anymore, so my exercises have changed. But again, that's what the formula I used when I was 18 will not work for me as I'm 55. So you have to get somebody to coach you. You have to try a couple different routines. But I think that the most universal key is, number one, to be doing resistance training. I certainly know guys that do body weight exercises and they look very ripped, meaning their body fat index is low and they have some mass to them. But the guys that have the biggest mass gains are usually the ones that do resistance exercises with extra weight. They're the concept of how to exercise. So usually you need to stimulate muscle, like in shoulders. You need to do shoulder exercises, or exercises that are specific for targeting the shoulder. You have to do it in a fashion that doesn't overexhaust and doesn't put you into a possible injury. So typically it's 3 sets. 3 sets of repetitions. The repetitions, the old school way of thinking about repetitions for each set would be you do 10 and you get ripped. Or you keep it to 6 and you get pumped. So 6 repetitions, that's not with the same weight, obviously. 10 repetitions is 10 repetitions in one position and you kind of go to the point of number 10 is exhaustion. 6 would be the same thing, but you're just pushing more weight. Now you have to be careful because with each of these joints that's involved, whether it's knees, shoulders, elbows, back, you have to be careful. The lower you go with repetitions, the more tempted you are to put on massive amounts of weight. So just putting massive amounts of weight on out the gate, and when you first start up with exercise, is a little bit dangerous. You have to be well versed in your form. So that's where I think strict form is very important. I've seen some folks use CrossFit in Olympic training or Olympic lifting. Clean and jerks, deadlifts, squats, and I think, again, getting to that point where you lift the most weight with the shortest amount of repetitions is probably going to be the most stimulating to muscle. So again, starting up, you want to do around 3 sets of a shoulder movement, and then you might want to do another 2 different exercises, all of them 3 sets, to stimulate the shoulder. And that's done for shoulders. If you want to first start out, you work on your form. If you're trying to gain muscle mass, I would go towards low repetitions, very strict form. Sometimes at the last push, if you can't get it all the way up, you have an associate or somebody helping you, spotting you, help you get to maximum lift, and then fight it on the way down. That's a negative movement. So again, you get to the point of failure, but you're still overstimulating the same muscle group in a negative movement. So you see how pushing to the point of failure is important. At the same time, throwing a couple different exercises for one body part would be the old school way I used to do it. Now I only have 30 minutes to exercise and I don't have that opportunity, so I usually do rapid succession of different exercises, and that's the next step. After you get to a really good form, and after you get to an adopted or a chosen 3 sets per exercise movement, and maybe 6 repetitions for every 3 sets, there's something called maximal lift. One movement or 1 repetition max lift is what I used to do to peak or get to in about 3 months or 2 months. You keep on doing the movements and you challenge yourself and your friends to get to maximum lift in the strictest form, and that's it. And then you lift, you leave it alone. So 1 repetition max or 1 rep max would be something to challenge the muscle, to stimulate it and cause breakdown of tissue, so that your next 2 months it'll be, I guess, used to going for the next highest rep in 2 months, 1 rep max. So I think that one thing we always find with athletes is if you do the same exercises that you did 2 years ago and you're with the same weight, same repetition, you'll get muscular pump, but you won't stimulate because we're very efficient with our movement. Marathoners, for example, with their running, they're very efficient with their movements, so they eventually learn to just get enough movement, enough muscle response to get through and get their chosen either their 23.6 mile run in, or get their time, and that's it. So we usually sit back, be very efficient, not burn too much energy, conserve energy, and get what we want. So that's the normal human spirit and normal human desire. The problem is if you want to gain size and continue to gain size into your 50s, you have to overstimulate. And that usually means I would not just stay at one peak. I would usually challenge the muscles with a 1 rep max, for example, every year to be the highest at a certain time and your best performance. Whether it's that or you try to initiate a different movement or a different contest, something where you're going to a different peak every time. That's that concept of muscle confusion somebody came up with. I think I saw it on the P90X. The muscle confusion is not really a concept. I think it's because, again, we're very efficient with what we do with movement. If I can just get enough movement to get that thing out and be efficient with it, I'll actually burn less calories. I won't have to call on the muscle as much because I'm very efficient with my movement. So the things that I become efficient with, I don't really stimulate muscle that much anymore, right? So that's why I think mixing up your exercises every 3 to 6 months might be enough to, again, challenge the body to develop more size. You also have to get good rest. You also have to get, and that's 7 to 8 per person with, you know, outliers. Some people need 6, some people need 10, but really 8 hours if you're a young person trying to get good responsiveness. Brain needs it, muscle needs it, and then there's timing of exercise. Within a week's time, what I used to do was a split routine. I do 1 set of different body parts, shoulders and pecs on a Monday. I'd give a rest time and then hit the same thing on Thursday. And then I do back and biceps or back and legs on Tuesday, hit the same thing on Friday. And then on Wednesday and the weekends, I'd kind of work on weak body parts before performance or before my competition. And that's what I used to do before, but I'd spend 1 hour to 2 hours in the gym. I don't have that luxury anymore. So now what I do is 30 minutes of giant sets. 30 minutes on Wednesday, hopefully on Friday, and 1 other time on the weekend. I squeeze everything I can with the most important movements with each body part I'm working on within 30 minutes. A giant set is Joe Weider back in the 80s put together the term where you do 1 set, 1 set, 1 set, no break in between. If you've ever seen a wrestling team, mixed martial arts trainers, boxing team, crew team, they do not take a break because they work on the strength. They also have their cardiovascular endurance going so they can mimic a competition. So a giant set will get all that workout within a 30-minute time interval. The only problem is you need all your machines and or dumbbells on barbells within reach. And to have all that stuff, so you can go from, say, overhead shoulder press, lateral raises, to pecs, to squat, you'd be having to claim all that equipment. And you can't do that in a gym because other people are waiting for you. even if you are going fast. So you have to be choosy. I usually go off hours. I can't do that kind of a workout when it's 5 o'clock high peak. So sometimes you can do it at home. Sometimes you can do a giant set where you do the weight, you do a machine, and then maybe you do a plyometric or a body weight exercise. That way you can keep it all in one thing. But so that might be an idea. And the final thing is you got to have nutrition. I've done several videos on how much protein to have. If you don't have the protein in your diet, or you eat crappy protein, then you're not going to have muscle build up. Anabolic stimulus for muscle to respond and grow is usually dependent on how much protein you have. If you have no protein and just go McDonald's and or Subway, that's high carbohydrate, you're going to be breaking down tissue even if you're doing an aggressively hard workout. So you got to eat properly. Turmeric, as far as anti-inflammatory, I think is great. Magnesium, muscle massage, stretching and flexibility, all keeps you out of injury and also helps the muscle to recover faster. Anabolic steroids in my day were big. They're probably still big, but I think it's a shortcut, and I think they're dangerous because you don't know what you're getting, even if you get it from Canada or outside the US. You're messing around with things. Lyle Alzado is a professional football player. He messed around with steroids, developed liver cancer, and died. But you just have to be careful with the use of steroids. I think it's a shortcut. It does get you big, but at the sacrifice of, number one, being addicted psychologically to them. Number two, the downside of all that steroid being digested by the liver. That's a lot of work. So creatine always helps. Eating properly, again, timing-wise always helps. The protein timing, like right after exercise, within 30 minutes to 2 hours, I think it's important, but I can't do that sometimes just because I'm in such a tough schedule. So, a good question, Freddy. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of a basic. If you need more, hire a personal trainer or hire somebody that's a coach, and that you can kind of pick their brain for a personalized program, which is usually